Welcome back, everyone, to Sip and Talk. You know, it feels like every time you look at financial news lately, it's all about AI, right?
Oh, absolutely. Is NVIDIA too high? Is the bubble gonna pop? That whole conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But when I'm at the grocery store, looking at the price of milk or eggs or thinking about rent, I'm just wondering, when are these prices actually going to come down? That feels, I don't know, more real.
That is the core issue, isn't it? I mean, the AI stock valuations are one thing, but the day-to-day cost of living, that's the persistent problem, is what keeps people up at night.
So maybe we're focusing on the wrong bubble. Or at least not the most immediate threat.
Well, that's what we want to explore today. Because that stubborn cost pressure, it points to something deeper. It feels stable on the surface, maybe, but it's what some people are calling fragmented stability.
Fragmented stability. I like the sound of that. It paints a picture. Like the world economy is holding together with, I don't know, duct tape and maybe some wishful thinking.
Huh. That's actually not far off. It means we're not seeing this synchronized global boom anymore. Things look stable because different regions are just about managing their own specific crises.
Okay, so like the U.S. is wrestling with this sticky inflation.
Right. Meanwhile, Europe's worried about recession, China's pushing hard on its own tech, trying to become self-reliant, and Japan's, just trying to keep the yen from falling further. Everyone's fighting their own battle.
Gotcha. So the stability isn't really global, it's regional, maybe even fragile. And it's built on friction.
Exactly. High friction and high cost. That friction, that's what's feeding this underlying inflation. And that's why we think, looking towards 2026, this structural inflation, combined with all the geopolitical stuff messing with supply chains, that might be a bigger risk than just AI stocks correcting.
Okay, so that's the mission for today's talk then. To unpack why the inflation beast might be scarier than the AI ghost and dig into those geoeconomic fault lines.
Precisely. We'll look at what the Fed's trying to do, this policy tightrope they're on, and how things like the chip war are playing out in ways that maybe you haven't thought about.
And this matters to you, listening, because this whole structure, fragmented or not, it directly impacts your wallet, your buying power, interest rates on loans, maybe even how much that next vacation costs.
So let's start with the policymakers, the central banks. What are they losing sleep over right now? AI hype or inflation reality?
Well, from everything we're seeing, it seems pretty clear, right?
Yeah, the consensus is pretty decisive. Inflation is still public enemy number one. They're not getting sidetracked by, soaring tech stock.
We even heard that explicitly from folks like the Cleveland Fed president, Beth Hammack.
Correct. Hammack basically laid it out. Controlling inflation comes first, even if it means some pain in the job market. The bias is still towards keeping things tight.
Which means higher for longer on interest rates isn't just a slogan, it's the active strategy.
It is. And that environment is designed partly to cool down exactly those high-flying speculative assets, like AI stocks. It's a feature, not a bug, you could say.
So the Fed's implicitly saying, look, we'd rather risk cooling off the hottest part of the market than let inflation get truly embedded.
That seems to be the calculus. And the warnings about just how sticky this inflation could be, they're pretty serious. Look at someone like Raghuram Rajan, former head of India's central bank.
Was his take?
His forecast suggests that inflation, particularly driven by services and these ongoing import cost issues, could get stuck, like really stuck, maybe anchoring near 4% on a 3-month average by mid-2026.
4%, wow, that's double the Fed's target. That would kill consumer confidence, wouldn't it? Makes planning impossible.
Absolutely. And if inflation does get stuck at 4%, it's a huge blow to the Fed's credibility. It forces them into potentially even more painful tightening down the road.
Or the dreaded S word.
Or they risk stagflation.
Yeah.
High prices, stagnant growth. It's not just a number on a chart. It's a massive political and economic headache.
Okay, but speaking of headaches, that tough stance on inflation, keeping rates high, it's running smack into what's happening on the ground in the job market. The Fed keeps talking about a gradual cooling, but some of the data looks, well, colder than that.
It does. There's a real disconnect there. The official story sounds manageable, but the actual layoff announcements, they tell a different story.
Give us the numbers. What did we see recently?
Well, the data showed U.S. corporate layoffs in October 2025 hit 153,000, which is, frankly, shocking.
153,000.
In 1 month.
Yep. Highest number for October in over 20 years.
Yeah.
It was really concentrated in tech and warehousing. That's not a gradual cooling, that's a chill wind blowing.
And that kind of fear, it translates directly into people closing their wallets, right? We see that in the sentiment surveys. Instantly. The Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. It's fallen to around 57.9, historically low levels. When people are worried about their jobs, they just stop buying things, especially big-ticket items.
Which is a huge problem when consumer spending is, what, 70% of the entire U.S. economy?
Exactly, 70%. If people delay buying a car or put off that kitchen remodel, the whole economy can grind to a halt pretty quickly.
So this is the Fed's nightmare scenario, then. This policy tug-of-war.
Yeah.
They're really walking a tightrope.
Oh, absolutely. It's like two terrible choices. Option one, keep rates high to squash that 4% inflation risk, but risk tipping the job market into a full-blown recession.
Okay, bad option one. What's option two?
Option two is cutting rates. But the only real justification for cutting right now would be purely defensive, an insurance cut.
An insurance cut. Meaning they're not cutting because inflation is beaten, but just to stop the job market from totally collapsing, like damage control.
Precisely. It's a cut made out of fear, not victory. But here's the catch. Any cut like that, done purely for damage control, it undermines the inflation fight.
Right, because you're easing up before the job is done.
Yeah, and that dramatically increases the risk of, you guessed it, prolonged stagflation.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to the core question, why is this inflation so damn hard to kill?
And that leads us right into the geopolitical angle, doesn't it? Because maybe the reason inflation is so structural now is that the world itself has changed. The supply chains are just more expensive.
Bingo! This is where that fragmented stability idea really bites. Global stability today isn't built on smooth, efficient, low-cost global trade anymore. It's built on redundancy.
Redundancy meaning?
Higher costs.
High friction and high-cost redundancy. Think about it. A company used to just find the cheapest place in the world, maybe China, to make something. Now
they need a plan B, a China plus one strategy. So they build another factory in Vietnam or Mexico or India, just in case.
Exactly. And building and maintaining that extra capacity, that costs money. A lot of money. And that cost gets baked into the price you pay permanently. It's a structural shift. Okay, so this isn't just temporary friction. It's the new, more expensive way of doing business globally.
Right. And if you want a perfect example of this high-friction world in action, look at that recent negotiation involving Nexperia and the Netherlands.
Ah, yes, the chip maker. That seemed like a really interesting case study in the chip war dynamics. What was the deal there?
Well, the Netherlands' key U.S. ally, home to ASML, crucial chip tech, they were thinking about easing some export controls on Nexperia, which is owned by a Chinese entity.
Okay, why would they do that? Seemed counter to the whole restriction push.
It wasn't charity, it was a trade. China was basically offering something in return.
And what was China putting on the table?
The reliable export of essential upstream materials, things like gallium and germanium, stuff you absolutely need for semiconductors, solar panels, fiber optics, basic building blocks.
Ah, okay. So China wasn't using its cutting-edge tech as leverage, but its control over the less advanced but still critical inputs and older chips.
Exactly. It showed China can effectively use its dominance in mature process nodes. Think 28-nanometer chips and older and these key raw materials as a counter lever. The West might block the absolute state-of-the-art stuff.
But they still need the slightly older chips to run cars, washing machines, medical devices, everything.
Right, so they're forced to negotiate, maybe ease up elsewhere, just to keep the supply of those essential, more basic components flowing. It shows the chip war is way more complex than just who has the smallest transistors.
That's a fascinating insight. It's not just about the bleeding edge, it's about the entire supply pyramid. And China has leverage points we maybe weren't focusing on.
And that leverage, that ability to force these condition exchanges like with Nexperia, it feeds directly into China's bigger plans. We can see sort of four main paths they're accelerating down because of this dynamic.
Okay, let's walk through those. What's path number one?
First is increased competitiveness. China is just pouring state money into R&D. We're talking like 20% annual growth, aims squarely at becoming self-sufficient in those mature nodes by 2030.
So doubling down where they already have strength.
Yes, but also looking for ways to leapfrog. While they struggle to match the West on things like UV lithography for the tiniest chips or HBM memory for AI, they're pushing hard on alternative routes, new chip architectures like RICV, new materials, trying to change the game, essentially.
Find a different path up the mountain if the main trail is blocked. Makes sense. What's the second path?
Second path is increased military threat potential. This is the uncomfortable part. Advanced chips power modern military tech AI for tactics, supercomputing for simulations, guidance systems. you name it.
So any easing of restrictions, even if it's indirect or seems minor.
It potentially helps accelerate China's military modernization, which is, ironically, the very thing the U.S. restrictions were primarily designed to slow down. It's a tricky balance.
Yeah, serious, potential unintended consequence. Path 3.
Increased propaganda.
Right.
Domestically, any relaxation of controls, no matter how nuanced, gets spun. It's presented as proof that Western sanctions are failing, that China's path to self-reliance is working. It boosts national morale and reinforces the government's narrative.
Standard playbook, maybe, but effective internally. And the last path, number 4.
Path 4 is about increased IP theft capacity. It's a bit blunt, but look, more access to technology, even through temporary loopholes or collaborations, just increases the opportunities for intellectual property to be, let's say, appropriated. Reverse engineering becomes easier.
So more exposure equals more risk. Got it.
Yeah.
When you put all this together, the friction, the leverage, China's strategic responses is what does the global picture look like?
It looks like a permanent split, a dual-track supply chain, really. You've got this U.S.-led sort of closed-loop system for the absolute cutting-edge stuff, the EUV machines, the HBM memory, highly protected.
And then track 2.
Track 2 is an increasingly independent, China-led internal system, focused on those mature processes, but also aggressively exploring those new architectures and materials, trying to build their own ecosystem.
When this division, this dual-track world built on mistrust and costly redundancy, that's what makes inflation structural, right? It's not just a blip.
Exactly. The cost of geopolitical maneuvering, of securing supply chains, is now fundamentally baked into the cost of making almost everything. It's not going away quickly.
Okay, let's try and sum this up then. What's the big takeaway for someone listening as we head towards 2026?
I think the key idea is this asymmetrical stability period. Don't expect dramatic, visible chaos necessarily, or just one big bubble popping. The real risk is this slow burn. It's the gradual, costly buildup of structural inflation and geopolitical friction that just slowly erodes purchasing power and economic dynamism.
And like we said at the start, that structure hits you directly. It's in the price of groceries. It determines loan rates. It affects job security. Geopolitics isn't abstract anymore. It's in your budget. And
the space for policymakers, particularly the Fed, to get it wrong, it's incredibly narrow. They're trying to steer between that rock of 4% sticky inflation and the hard place of a job-killing recession.
So the final thought really is, the future winners and losers, economically speaking, might not be determined by who has the hottest AI model this quarter.
Probably not. It'll likely be determined by which nations, which economies can best navigate this messy, fragmented, dual-track world of technology and supply chains over the long haul. That's the real game.
Wow. A sobering but really crucial perspective. Thanks for breaking all that down for us.
My pleasure. It's definitely a lot to think about as we look ahead.
Absolutely. And if you want to keep thinking about these big shifts and how they might affect you, make sure you subscribe to the Sip&Talk podcast.
Yeah, don't miss out.
And hey, also check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickytolife. Always got some fun memes and cool new travel vlogs up there. Good stuff.
Always entertaining.
All right, folks, that's all for this time. We'll see you next time on Sip&Talk.